What if Robert Baratheon named Stannis Hand of the King, not Ned? Let's explore the depths of it in the video. Stannis looks at the letters that had arrived by Raven directly from the Red Keep. Even before opening it, he knew it was a letter he had been expecting for some time, but one he had hoped not to find. If Robert were writing to him now, then it means Jon Arryn is likely dead. The two of them had been investigating a major corruption scandal that involved most of the small council, and just as they were starting to make progress, the Hand of the King suddenly fell ill. Stannis was no fool and understood what was going on, which is why he decided to escape to Dragonstone. He considers the Hand for a moment. Lord Arryn was a good man who had served the realm dutifully in a council full of fools and flatterers. He had offered prudent advice when no one else would, and now he is paid for it. Only then does Stannis peel open the wax and examine its contents. Despite preparing himself, the letter still has more surprises than he had expected, and the Lord of Dragonstone finds himself narrowing his eyes, looking for any signs of deception, any signs that this might be a trap. Yet the handwriting and style are Robert's through and through, simple, blunt, and crude, but painfully honest.
News, my lord.
It appears Jon Arryn is dead, just as you said.
Then you see the powers I possess, that I am not a mere charlatan. I can help you, and I can start with your visions.
You can start by accompanying me to the capital. It appears I have been named Hand. Your vision did not mention that.
What I see in the flames are merely glimpses, flashes of the future. I see only what the Lord of Light is willing to reveal.
Then pray he chooses to reveal more soon. We will need it in King's Landing if we hope to survive.
It does not take long for Stannis to pen a letter to Robert, assuring him that he will be glad to take Jon Arryn's place and will sail back there immediately. He excuses himself by saying that there was urgent business on Dragonstone that he needed to take care of, but now they are settled. He sails after a fortnight, waiting first to gather additional swords. These come from men of lesser houses in the Crownlands, and a handful from the Stormlands, who Stannis has taken into his service. Though they number only a few dozen, they are still much needed protection, and soon they are standing on the deck of the Fury as it sails back into King's Landing. There is little fanfare for Stannis' arrival, not that he cares for it. The new Hand instead takes the time to consider his next move. He knows he must go after the Lannisters, but that is just the beginning. His hands grip the rail of his ship as he thinks back to his visions. The painted table was cracking and breaking apart before him, and then a cold one blows over its remains, freezing the table in its place until it is dust in the air. And then the voice commanding him to act, to mend the rift in the kingdom's body and its soul. For the moment, he pushes that thought aside as the herald announces their arrival. Stannis disembarks and makes his way directly to the Red Keep. Robert is waiting for him by the time he arrives. The king nods his head and offers him the badge of the Hand. There is no ceremony, no words exchanged, nothing like that. Only a cold nod between the two brothers. They make their way into the small council chambers to discuss what will happen moving forward.
I will make the preparations for Jon Arryn's funeral. The man was good for me and good for the realm. He must be honored appropriately.
Yes, I agree with that. But there is another matter to discuss. The matter of his death.
Of Lord Arryn? Yes. I suppose Parcell didn't tell you. He died of a stomach disease. It might have been something he had eaten. We're having the kitchen staff investigated.
You can have them all removed and place their heads on spikes, but you will not find the answers you seek.
You say it as if he were murdered.
He was. The reason I left was because, before his death, Jon Arryn and I were looking into something. A scandal the Queen had been covering up regarding your children. The two of us had begun to suspect that they are not truly yours, that they are bastards.
Bastards? What you are speaking of is madness and bordering dangerously close to treason. You'd better have a good reason for thinking that.
We do. We have been studying genealogies, lineages, and...
That is your evidence? A few old family trees? That proves nothing. And if I ever suggested that, the Lannisters might rebel for that insult. Bah! If it wasn't for Jon Arryn recommending you, I might have gone with my gut and named Ned Hand.
If you find my services lacking, then you are free to dismiss me at any time. And if I'm wrong here, you are free to take my head. All I require to prove their crimes is a chance to question them.
Question them? Are you talking about arresting my wife and one of my Kingsguard? What would the court say? What would Tywin Lannister say?
Nothing once you present my head. But I am not mistaken.
You'd better not be.
He did not outright reject his idea, but it is clear Robert is unhappy with it. The conversation soon shifts to the funeral service of Jon Arryn, and Stannis begins to give details while the back of his mind works on planning for taking the Lannister siblings. Once he finishes planning with Robert, he sends word to his knights to prepare to act. Weeks later, the funeral bells toll for the Hand. True to his word, Robert does not spare any expenses for Lord Arryn, insisting it is what he would have wanted. Though Stannis had tried to dissuade him from such an extravagant event, there was no stopping the king. He ponders what it truly means to be Hand when the king will not listen, as he rides down the street from the Red Keep toward the Sept of Baelor. He is accompanied by Robert, the royal family, the small council, and Jon's family. The march begins solemnly enough, with septums giving sermons and friends of the Hand offering eulogies as they walk, letting the small folk know of his deeds. Many of those people wave banners or declare their love for him. Yet, as the procession continues, Robert Arryn begins to cough and wheeze as a seizure takes over. The poor boy is overwhelmed by the crowds and struggles to keep up with them. Lysa is immediately upon him and coos, suggesting they turn back. Stannis had expected something like this would happen, and insists the march continue. However, he understands that Robin might not be in the state to continue, and instructs Sir Jaime and Maester Coleman to return to the Red Keep so that the little lord can rest. Lady Lysa wishes to return with them, but Stannis refuses and reminds her that she is Lord Arryn's wife, and it would not be right if she were not seen escorting his body. The others agree, so the three depart on their own. Yet once Jaime has Robin safely in his bed and leaves to rejoin the procession, he notices something off about the Red Keep. The atmosphere is different. Quiet. That isn't too surprising given how everyone is out, but there is also an unspoken tension in the air, and then he sees it. The guards aren't wearing the normal badges of the Crowned Stag, but the flaming heart of Stannis. Suddenly, two knights round the corner and approach him, accompanied by half a dozen men-at-arms. The larger of the two, Sir Godfrey Ferring, clears his throat.
Kingslayer, you are to accompany us immediately. The Hand has special instructions for you.
And what are these instructions that require you and your friends to greet me personally?
Come with us and find out, sir.
If I didn't know any better, I would think you were kidnapping me. Of course, you didn't bring enough men for that.
Oh, didn't we?
The guards stationed around Robin Arryn's room slowly reach for their swords, while those with crossbows begin to load them. There now had to be a score of them at least, some with swords, others with halberds, and some with axes. In the hall, they could easily rush up and mob him.
You know, my sister will hear of this. That is what we hope.
They begin to escort him towards the dungeons, where the door opens to reveal a figure in red. It wasn't Stannis, but Melisandre. At her feet, a low fire burns that seems to glow brighter as she sees him. When the procession finishes and people begin to return home, a Lannister guard reports that he saw Sir Jaime being led down to the dungeons by Stannis' men. Cersei immediately orders his release and commands the Lannister guardsmen to free him, but to her surprise, Robert overrules that order.
No. He says he knows something about Jon Arryn's death, and I will have answers on that and other things that you have been hiding from me, my wife.
You bloody oaf. I've always known you to be a drunk, but I never pictured you to be a craven and an idiot as well. Look at you, being ordered around by your younger brother, the one who sulked on his island when your Hand lay dying, and yet you welcome him back with open arms.
Silence. Irritating as he might be, Stannis is my brother. You would be wise to recall who controls your fate. Now have my queen confined to a room, and be sure to have Sir Barristan guarding her.
From there, the interrogation begins. Every day, one of Stannis' men would go into the black cells in the queen's apartments to talk to them about the incest. They would bring forth the evidence they had gathered and demand answers. Genealogies were presented, as well as witness testimony about unscheduled meetings between them. They demand answers, and are met with laughter by both twins. The truth is, they do not have anything truly ironclad. These are rumors and gossip at best, and they know it. They also know that Stannis cannot keep this up forever. Once word gets out, or Robert's patience wears thin, they will be released, and after that, it will almost be impossible to bring it up again, assuming he will still be there to press the claim. Both are happy to remain silent on the matter, spitting out jests, curses, and half-truths to keep him placated. However, the Hand knows this as well. Robert makes his impatience clear, reminding him that he cannot keep them there for long, and warns that any longer and he will be forced to intervene. The king also makes it clear he will not sign off on any torture. Renly warns them that the two are public figures, and they cannot risk either appearing injured before the court, lest they gain sympathy and make the king appear like a tyrant. Stannis recognizes this too, and knows time is running out. While he cannot force a confession out, he decides to use another tool in his arsenal, Melisandre. So far, she had visited both, whispering about how the Lord of Light already knows, and how punishments will be meted out. But now she is free to unleash another tactic. When she visits Jaime again, a pair of men are carrying a large basin filled with firewood. They begin to light it and leave a small fire burning in the dungeon.
You are a stubborn one, said Jaime. I will grant you that. But I already know the truth. I have seen it in the flames.
If you have seen it in the flames, it begs the question of why you need me to confess.
Because Rolar knows all, but men are so easily misled by the smoke and shadows. It is why the Lord of Light granted us fire, so we may glean the truth, at least for those willing to look.
As she says that, the flames begin to burn a bit brighter, and she leans closer towards him, cupping his cheek.
Perhaps you should look closer.
And then her grip becomes firm as she guides his face into the fire, letting him watch the crackling wood amidst the orange and yellow backdrop. From there he shivers, as he could have sworn he glimpsed Cersei's face. Melisandre does not light up and continues to make him watch as her face appears again, this time distorted in fear, and then screams. The image becomes clear. Cersei atop a wooden stake, a pyre laid at her feet. He shakes his head, bringing his thoughts back to old Rickard Stark and how he died. Jaime's chest heaves, and he looks away.
No, that is a trick of the eyes.
If you believe that, then I cannot stop you. But it also means you cannot stop what will come next.
You wouldn't dare. Robert will have all of you killed if you lay a hand on her.
He will have us killed if we do nothing and come back empty-handed. But at least we shall be vindicated.
You're all mad.
Perhaps some of us. But there have been converts among Stannis' knights. Queensmen, they call themselves. They are earnest in the faith and eager to prove themselves. If this investigation is unfruitful, they might be inclined towards drastic action. Not that I would stop them, misguided as they are. But it is as I said, men are so often misled by smoke and shadow.
As she speaks, the flames seem to burn brighter, and with them, the screams that echo across the small dungeon cell, leaving no escape from them. Jaime tries to cover his ears. He shakes his head and squeezes his eyes shut, but nothing seems to drown out those sounds until he at last screams.
Enough! Enough! All right. I confess the incest.
The story soon begins to spill out, every detail, even before Cersei's marriage to Robert. He talks about how they used to experiment when they were children, how their mother had caught them and moved them to different chambers. He talks about how both had felt like outcasts despite their positions. Jaime was always the Kingslayer in Cersei's marriage to Robert, and at last, the 3 children. He admits that Cersei had told him they were his. The one thing he does not confess to is the death of Jon Arryn. He swears he did not even know about the investigation. He insists that Cersei did not have him poisoned and barely spared him a second thought. At most, she had simply instructed Pycelle to ensure he would not recover. When he finishes, Melisandre stares at him as if looking into his soul. The flames around her continue to burn brighter. They lick at the tips of the ceiling, and the air becomes almost choking. And yet, the heat never bothered her anyway.
I believe you.
With that, she turns and walks right through the pyre. As she glides across it, she is completely unharmed, and the fire dies without her, leaving Jaime in darkness. The news of this sends shockwaves to Robert. He was always skeptical about it, but when he heard how Jaime had confessed at all, the rumors seemed a lot more true. Based on the descriptions Melisandre gave, he was quite thorough and detailed. It is hardly some confession born out of torture, especially when they examine him and see there is not a mark on him. This means that they must act. While all 3 Baratheons agree they must be punished, there is the question of Tywin, who will not take kindly to his 2 oldest children being executed. Rather than killing them right away, Stannis instead advocates for keeping them alive, at least for the time being, as a bargaining chip. The realm marches. News of Jaime's confession spreads quickly, and now none can doubt the truth. Cersei's children are illegitimate, her marriage is a sham, and the crown is tainted. With Robert's blessing, Stannis moves swiftly. Edicts go out, the banners are called. Stormlanders, Crownlanders, and even hesitant Reachmen begin to fall in line. Together, Robert and Stannis lead the host across the Westerlands to confront the Old Lion directly. Tywin Lannister, caught between disbelief and fury, sends ravens calling for terms. He offers to send Cersei to the Silent Sisters, to let Jaime rot at the wall, and to take custody of the children himself. The offers are weighed, then cast aside. The twins' fate is not for him to decide, not when they have confessed their crimes and spat in the face of the crown. The march continues. Tywin retreats to Castle Rock, his letters turning from conciliatory to sharp commands. He summons his bannermen, and some answer, mostly out of fear. Those closest to him rally their banners and ride to him. The Crackhulls ride, but others hesitate. The stain of treason and incest fouls the air, and no man wishes to be on the wrong side of a dying dynasty. Yet Tywin's name still rings strong, and his army grows. Still, the Westerlands are not undefended. Skirmishes erupt on the Gold Road. Ravines soaked red. A detachment of Robert's vanguard is ambushed near Ashmark, supply lines raided by Sir Gregor, and the Westermen manage to escape and attempt an encirclement. These are hardly deceiving and are little more than cuts and scrapes on their foes. But for a brief moment, the royal army falters. Tywin holds a glimmer of hope until Stannis changes the terms of war. Rather than focus on breaking the army's body, he goes after the spirit. They fight because they fear Tywin, so he goes out of his way to make them fear him more. He tracks the raids of Sir Gregor, studying where he might retreat and where his armies come from. He proves to be a particularly irritating thorn in their side as his mountain men descend from the highlands, raiding supply lines and slaughtering villages in Tywin's name. He must be eliminated at once. Luckily, he soon tracks them down to a rough location where his men are hiding. Yet, when the mountain tries a night raid, he doesn't find sleeping men, but Queen's men prepared in their tents and ready to attack. The screams come only after the fire is lit. The mountain is taken alive, wounded, drugged, and bound. It cost the lives of a dozen men, but they managed to capture him. At dawn, the Westermen awakened to the smoke on the horizon. They arrived too late to stop the execution. On a wooden pyre, Gregor Clegane and 24 of his men burn, screaming curses as flames consume them. The flames lick higher than any funeral pyre, and when it is done, all that remains is ash. With that, a message is sent to every lord's castle. Fear Tywin, and you die. Fear Stannis, and you burn. The effect is immediate. Banners lower, men flee. Some villages open their gates to the royal host without a fight. The few remaining holdouts retreat to Castle Rock, where Tywin watches the tide turn against him. The siege is brief. His bannermen abandon him one by one. Supplies dwindle. His couriers are intercepted. His gold buys nothing now, as sellswords refuse to hire themselves out to a lost cause. At last, Tywin opens his gates. He is not dragged from his halls nor paraded in chains. Stannis allows him to keep his name, his lands, and his breath, but nothing else. His house is broken. His children are prisoners. His legacy, ash. House Lannister shall remain, but diminished, humbled, and bound to the will of the crown. The war ends not with a final battle, but with a long silence and the smell of ash. But while they claim victory, the embers of chaos remain. Many houses watch as Stannis burns men alive, and some ask in whispers how is he any different than the Mad King. While a number of them do it from genuine fear, others from opportunism. He was never popular among the nobility, but now people have even more reason to distrust him. Yet none of this was on Stannis' mind, as he was instead considering what Sir Jaime said about Jon Arryn's death. He was not murdered by the Lannisters, though they were happy to exploit his death. This leaves the question, if not them, then who? But for once, Robert finds himself glad that the war is over. He thought that it might have reinvigorated him, but instead, he feels more tired than ever. The revelation of Cersei's lies, and even that his family was taken from him, saps what little strength he has. When he returns to King's Landing, he simply returns to the bottle, leaving the ruling of the kingdom to someone else. To Stannis, little seems to change, as he has seen this to be the case for many years, and expects no different now. Rather than try to rouse the king, he uses his position as hand to begin taking command of the Seven Kingdoms, and rooting out the corruption. He starts with the Lannister loyalists. While many are pardoned only for doing their duty like the Bannermen, others are not so lucky. Stannis studies how the Lannisters have used their position to enrich themselves and their allies, and begins to undo them. Westermen are removed from positions granted to them by the Queen. Lands and incomes are confiscated if they were taken unlawfully, and in some cases, executions are done to the worst offenders. The first three to meet this end are Jaime, Cersei, and Pycelle. True to his word, they do not burn as Jaime cooperated. Instead, they are beheaded quickly and their bodies are disposed of. It does not stop with the Westermen, though. Stannis continues these purges across the entire kingdom. Robert had been negligent and rewarded undeserving men from all across the Seven Kingdoms. Men from the Reach, Riverlands, Vale, and even the Stormlands find themselves in their crosshairs. They find their positions threatened, and if not, their names insulted by Stannis, who spares no efforts to hide his disdain for them. In a time of honor, these words are enough to incense some lords into action. The only thing that stops him from rebellion is Renly, who must smooth over tensions. He has to meet lords who feel slighted by Stannis' actions, assuring them that it does not reflect what the crown thinks, and in some cases, silently making amends with these issues. However, there is nothing he can do to stop the executions. Stannis reserves this only for the worst criminals, those whose actions are impossible to ignore, and meet the headman. Yet, this execution is not met by cheers from the small folk. Although they never liked the crown, they fear Stannis even more, whispering of his love for burning those who oppose him, and warning how he oversteps, murdering those who dare speak out against him. It would also help if the king spoke out and lends his voice, yet Robert remains silent, a fact that annoys both brothers to no end, as he instead spends his time in the Kingswood or drinking. He rarely attends meetings, and cannot even be bothered to discuss issues. Rather being caused by boredom, this time it stems from depression. One person who also notices is Littlefinger. Though the realm appears stable, in truth it is being ruled by three people completely separately, and with that division lies opportunity. He begins to approach Renly privately as he handles another case of turmoil in the city. This time, the brothel owners are furious at Stannis' proposal to ban brothels. The youngest Baratheon barely manages to quell things, assuring them that he will not let Stannis push that, and manages to convince him instead to enact stronger laws. As he heads back to the Red Keep, Littlefinger approaches him.
Excellent job handling the situation, Lord Renly. I would hate to see so many of my establishments shut down because of these laws. My purse thanks you.
Yours and many others. I still wonder what Stannis was thinking with such an idea. Surely even he knows that something like this would only stir up trouble. If he actually tries to enact this through the Seven Kingdoms, we may have a rebellion on our hands.
We would have had rebellion long ago if it weren't for you, my friend.
Yes, well, tell my brothers that, because they would sooner ignore the people. Robert only looks at the bottom of his wine glass, and Stannis is no better. I've tried to get him to attend court or dine with some of the lords so that they may explain their side, but he refuses. He's a stubborn man. All the while I'm left to put out their fires.
And with so little thanks. To them, it is simply the job of the youngest. They have always seen it that way. Larger men typically think that, in my experience. Yet always so satisfying for them to watch as your star rises.
Indeed. You've come a long way for such a little man. I'm sure many in the Fingers must be astounded looking at you now.
Your star may rise higher still, but only if you are willing to take the steps to go beyond what is given to you. Lord Renly, you control Storm's End. Perhaps it is time you also begin looking for allies beyond. The nobles look to you for guidance, not Stannis or Robert. Their stars have faded. But you, your story is yet to be told.
Renly smiles at the thought of that. It is true. With Robert resigning himself from public life and Stannis focused on ruling, neither pays much heed to what he does, even when he announces his marriage to Margaery Tyrell. Neither brother barely reacts, and are practically forced to attend the wedding. Yet at the same time, Stannis focuses his attention on the next great issue, the Crown's mounting debts to the Iron Bank. Even with the removal of the Lannister debt, it is still considerable, and his efforts to cut spending have been met with limited effect. Something is wrong, and he begins to issue reviews of the Crown's assets and finances. A cursory glance tells him that it is a mess. Assets are scattered everywhere and must be personally reviewed, so Stannis creates a commission to handle this without informing Robert. He sends Sir Davos and his men to scour the Seven Kingdoms and study the status of these ships, brothels, markets, and more. When they return, he drafts the new budget, working closely with trusted allies to allocate resources as equitably as possible, and focusing on maximizing useful assets while cutting back on worthless ones. This takes much time and effort, leaving Stannis to handle it alone. Robert barely gives him acknowledgement, and it proves difficult to get him to even sign off on it. The Red Keep grows quieter with each passing day. Stannis buries himself in scrolls and reports. Renly often rides to meet with merchants, lords, and guilds. And Robert drinks. He wanders the halls like a ghost in a half-empty palace. His only company, a skin of wine, and the ache in his heart. Even the throne feels colder when he sits. Littlefinger notices. He does not pounce, not yet. He sidles in like a shadow behind the king, always present at the edge of council meetings, never loud, never pressing, just present. One evening, Robert stumbles out from the Royal Solar, half drunk and irritated. Stannis had once again pushed a decree without so much as a word of discussion, something about reforming tariffs and seizing abandoned properties.
Your Grace, long day?
They never end. My brothers run the kingdom now. I just wear the bloody crown.
And yet the weight of every decision still falls on your head. I imagine even Lord Stannis forgets that from time to time.
Stannis forgets nothing. That's the trouble. Never a moment's rest.
And Lord Renly? He seems quite busy these days, reaching out to Lords of the Reach, dining often in Highgarden, charming many of them, I hear.
Robert narrows his eyes. He says nothing, but the seeds are planted. As Littlefinger departs, he begins to make his way back to his quarters, but watches the shadows as someone follows him. Smiling faintly, he turns and spreads his arms out to Varys.
You've been quite active, Lord Baelish, planting doubts in royal soil, poisoning roots.
I am simply speaking the truth I know. Lord Varys, I have no idea what you're talking about.
Truly? Well then, that is a shame, because I would have loved to discuss matters of great importance to you. A business proposition that would benefit us both.
Now, you know I am a man of business. If you have some sort of proposal to discuss, I do feel obligated to ask about it.
You seek chaos. I seek order. Sometimes they are one and the same, at least for a while. The Baratheon alliance won't last, but if we guide their fall, we may shape what rises in its place.
And what exactly do you want to rise?
A new order. It will need instability first. You're quite good at that. So good that you might secure your place in it.
They exchange knowing smiles, and soon enough, the first match is struck when a bit of wine is poisoned and given to Robert. But conveniently, a rat is also left in his castle that drinks it before he has a chance, exposing the plot. The court is thrown into disarray. Varys hurries to look into the matter, along with the rest of the court for any clues, and soon arrives with a report, a rare herb found only in the Stormlands. Renly rushes to his brother's side. Stannis, pulled from his ledgers, arrives moments later. For once, neither one can think about their own plans, and rushes to find their brother, alive, well, and furious.
Don't pretend concern now.
Brother,
You dine with lords in secret, whisper alliances in flowery gardens. And you burn half the kingdom with decrees and don't tell your king. You both rule as if I were dead already. I suppose you thought I could finish the job.
If you feel I've overstepped,
I feel you're waiting for me to die.
then perhaps stop acting like a dead man already walking. You spend your days drinking yourself to death while I meet with the lords who wish to petition the king. And you, Stannis, claim to speak for the people, but never once pull yourself to actually talk to them.
that is because I've been trying to undo 15 years of debt, corruption, and misrule. So forgive me if I do not have time to waste on balls and hunts and feasts.
Enough time to turn half the realm against you. Do you know how many times I've had to meet with lords to convince them not to take up arms against you?
There it is. Both of you speak of ruling, and yet I ask again, who sits on the Iron Throne? I wonder what you two discuss when I'm not here.
Stannis cannot tolerate the insult. Without another word, he turns and storms from the room.
Then perhaps get off your throne and come to us to see for yourself.
Renly, heart pounding, follows, but Robert does not call him back. Days later, a raven departs the Red Keep. Stannis relocates to Harrenhal, a strategic fortress with a grim history, but centrally located. He takes his household and loyal men, declaring it a more suitable base for regional governance. Renly retreats to Highgarden, ostensibly to stabilize Reach loyalties and cement ties through his Tyrell marriage. But those in court know what it means. The brothers no longer speak. And Robert, he remains alone in King's Landing, surrounded by flatterers, drink, and his throne. Littlefinger watches it all unfold from the Eyrie, where he is visiting his home. And while he visits, he happens to spot ships in the distance. Ships with the sigil of the Golden Company. As the realm splinters, word comes from the east. The Golden Company has landed in the Vale. Thousands of seasoned exiles. Their banners, golden skulls, and swords. But they do not come alone. They come bearing a boy of 20, with blue hair and purple eyes, who proclaims himself Aegon VI. He approaches Littlefinger and asks him for aid, saying that he thanks him for his support in this war and promises that his position will be sure on his small council. Littlefinger smiles and convinces the Vale to join him. That is an easy matter, as all he does is convince Lysa that the Baratheons are finished and their only hope is joining the new king. Some houses in the Vale, like House Grafton, have never forgotten their Targaryen sympathies and eagerly pledge themselves. It takes some coaxing, but more houses join them. The Golden Company soon pours into Westeros like a golden tide. They breach through the Bloody Gate, not with bloodshed, but with banners. The gates open for them at the urging of Lord Corbray and half a dozen Vale Lords who have grown wary of Robert's drunken reign, Stannis' tyranny, and Renly's absence. Behind their vanguard rides Aegon Targaryen, clad in black and red, with silver hair bound back in a warrior's knot. Beside him rides Jon Connington, worn, grim, and unflinching. The Vale armies swell their ranks, and soon a host of over 30,000 men descends upon the Riverlands. Harrenhal burns in the distance. Stannis fortifies it as best he can, but even the cursed walls cannot withstand the onslaught from all sides. Around them, the small folk panic, and Stannis rides out to confront them, with the meager 3,000 men he can muster. He hopes to buy time for them to escape, and for the Riverlords to raise their banners. Melisandre helps them find the rout of the army, and Stannis strikes hard in a series of brutal cavalry strikes. He manages to cut through their vanguard and buy time for people to escape, but it is no use. His army is battered and loses a third of its numbers, including Sir Godry, who foolishly tries to rush Aegon, only to be cut down by Jon Connington. Yet, when Stannis limps back to Harrenhal, he finds a few answered calls. The Riverlords rise, but not for him, emboldened by old loyalties and new fears. House Blackwood declares for Aegon. House Frey does not declare at all, but their riders shadow Harrenhal like vultures. And the Darrys, Goodbrooks, Coxes, Pages, and Vances rise up for Aegon. The few Riverlords who remain loyal are scattered and off fighting in their own rebellions. Stannis finds himself under siege with only 5,000 men, most from the Narrow Sea, and a few Riverlords and militias. The Riverlords have no love for him. He is the king's enforcer, a man who executed lords and humiliated great houses. The siege tightens with every passing day. No grain, no firewood, no reinforcements. And yet the Lord stands organizing the defenses like a man resigned to his fate. In Highgarden, the mood is even more dangerous. Renly sits in his solar, while Lord Tyrell, Tarly, Redwyn, and Fossaway argue around him.
The Targaryen boy is young, idealistic, and untrained by war.
Yet Robert is a proven commander.
Was a proven commander. The days of his leading armies have long passed. Now it is an effort to get him to even leave the Iron Throne. And yet he is my brother, and this boy is a usurper. What will that say about me if I choose him? Renly, as my good son, heed my advice. Offer your banners to him. With the Reach, Vale, and Stormlands, Robert will not have the opportunity to fight. But as part of his inner circle, you may advocate for his life. Convince Prince Aegon to offer mercy.
Some lords beg Renly to declare for Aegon. Others urge him to claim the throne himself if he will not fight for Aegon, insisting that he is more loved, more fit, more popular than either brother. Renly stalls. He delays. He issues orders to hold the Reach and Stormlands neutral. But the army begins to fracture on its own. They do not want to sit still as war rages around them. Some see opportunity, some feel loyalty, and others are simply angry. Some Reachmen ride east, answering the dragon's call. Others ride north, unsure if they'll be welcome in King's Landing, and many rise up against Renly and Mace, seeing it as their chance to gain favor with either king. These are led by houses Peake, Fossaway, Florent, and Swan. Soon, Renly finds himself fighting his own bannermen just to hold the roads open. In King's Landing, Robert finally hears the drums of war, but the crown is brittle. He can only summon crownland levies, and they are few. The gold cloaks are unreliable. The court is split between fear and drunken laughter. Then, as if summoned by memory, Ned Stark sails into Blackwater Bay with banners of the North flying proudly. Without a fleet, he only brings a few thousand men, yet they are the most beautiful sight Robert has ever seen. He could have kissed Ned when he disembarked, but satisfies himself with lifting his old friend up in a bear hug.
The dragons are back, and you and your wolves are the best thing that's happened since then.
What is the situation?
It's madness. Half the realm is at war with the other half. The Vale and most of the Riverlords have declared for Aegon, and now Harrenhal and Riverrun are under siege. In the south, Dawn has begun raiding the Reach, while the Reachmen and Stormlanders war with each other. Seems some want to join Aegon, some want to stay out of it, and some want Renly as king. Serves that traitor right.
Renly is down there. And is Stannis not at Harrenhal too? Your brothers are bleeding. We ride for them first.
Fuck that. I want to hunt a dragon. We can end the war in a stroke.
You are gambling on the long odds with that plan, Robert. There is not even a guarantee that they will stop once Aegon is dead. No, your brothers are the priority.
If they want to be kings, let them fight their own battles.
Robert, even if you don't care for your brothers, at least consider this. When you first began your rebellion, you secured the Stormlands first. You can't fight a war without a secure base.
I hate that you are right.
Robert rides south with 10,000 men, sailing towards the Reach, where they find the region tearing itself apart. In one house, they are welcomed. In another's lands, they are sworn enemies. Renly's court is constantly on the move, trying to stay one step ahead of the rebels. The fighting grows more ferocious by the day as rebels of war around them. Half had already declared for Aegon, but Renly was not one of them. Some houses called for him to take the crown, others to serve as Aegon's master of laws, but Renly has refused them. He had longed for power, but he would not serve the family that tried to murder his brother. When Robert sees his brother, the young Baratheon is gaunt and unshaven, yet he stands up.
I never wanted your throne. I just wanted to be seen, to feel my star rise.
It has, and I have seen you.
His arrival is greeted by cheers from the haggard Reach and Stormlander army. For the first time, they feel as though the crown has heard their pleas. Together, they crush the rebel Reachmen, led by a breakaway Fossaway host, and rally what remains of the loyal lords. Seeing this, Robert takes command of the army, but makes Renly his deputy. They ride back to capture Highgarden. While Mace has wished to join Aegon, his children opposed him, and now they help Renly sneak into the castle and seize it. The other rebel hosts are scattered. Dornish refused to work with Reachmen. The Fossaway branches refuse to cooperate, and others are too distant. This lets Renly and Robert crush them one by one. Meanwhile, Ned rides west, sweeping through the Riverlands. He defeats a Targaryen-aligned band near Pink Maiden and burns the banners of House Vance after capturing it. He leads a lightning force that manages to slip through Harrenhal and provide them with supplies. Stannis meets him in the burned Great Hall. To Ned's surprise, one army is missing. He says he lost it when a crossbow bolt pierced his vambrace.
I thought you would come for me last.
You're not my favorite man, Stannis, but you're Robert's brother, and he does not forget his kin.
For a moment, there is silence as Stannis considers these words. It was hard to believe it. All this time, he had taken that as truth, and yet here Ned Stark stands. The Lord bows his head and begins to lay out the situation for him. They are surrounded by rebel lords commanded by House Derry, while the Golden Company tries to retake Riverrun. Aegon Targaryen sends ravens to every lord. Bend the knee, and I will be your king. Resist, and I will be your conqueror.
Yet so long as Harrenhal and Riverrun stand, he can proclaim himself ruler all he likes. He will not be able to hold it securely.
Then we must hold it until Robert arrives.
Cleaning up his mess as always.
You should have seen him back in the Eyrie when we were boys.
Yet the gap they managed to open is quickly closed, and Ned finds himself hemmed in. Harrenhal's towers smolder, black against the blood-orange dawn. Smoke lingers over the lake. The river lords ring the fortress in steel and fire. Their banners shimmer on every hill. Inside the walls, men cry out from wounds, from hunger, from despair. The wounded fill the great hall. Firewood runs low. Stannis stands at the gate, His armor is scorched, his eyes are sunken, but his voice remains sharp as ever.
Hold the line. Every man who holds the kingdom.
But even his voice grows hoarse. The men fear the siege won't end. Some say their lord has gone mad from hunger and losing his army. Others that he prays to a fire god who will burn them all. Their first priority is to raise morale, and Stannis shows one of his best qualities, his willingness to share the burdens of his men. Stannis walks among the dying, helping carry the wounded, taking shifts with the watch, sharing what little bread is left. He speaks little, but he is seen. His men notice. His men rally. When Sir Ryman Darry renews his assault, the line holds. Stannis raises his sword with his one good hand, directing archers and pointing soldiers where they are needed. He watches the enemy lines furiously and continues to ride back and forth where he is needed. Ned personally leads the sorties and beats back assaults. He and his Northmen add much-needed relief to the castle, and though they only number a few hundred, they are a reminder that the realm has not abandoned them. That faith is soon rewarded. 3 days later, trumpets sound across the lake. Dust plumes rise on the southern road. The Baratheon banners return. Robert leads 20,000 men. Renly rides beside him, face grim, sword drawn. The relief host crashes into the siege lines. Seeing this, Sir Ryman leads a desperate charge, trying to reorganize their defenses. He rallies the River Lords and prepares to halt their attack. Spearmen rush forward and halt the first charge, but he is outnumbered 3-1, and soon his army begins to break. The knight personally leads the charge, fighting desperately and killing 2 of Robert's bannermen before falling to a forest of spears. In the smoky aftermath, the Baratheons meet the scorched yard of Harrenhal. Robert approaches first.
I didn't come sooner. I should have. I'm sorry. To both of you. After Cersei, I didn't care anymore. The crown, the war, any of it. Thought maybe it was better if I let you all run the damn kingdom.
Stannis says nothing for a long time, then breathes deeply.
I took on too much. Thought if I just fixed everything, after seeing the chaos you left, that I allowed you to leave. I felt it was my responsibility to make things right. It was my duty. That was all I saw. I didn't see the pain you were in, Robert.
I didn't ask you to fix my mistakes, but maybe I should have tried harder to see them. I never meant to put such responsibility on you.
I wronged you most. Treated you like a boy playing lord. But you held high garden, and you didn't bend the knee to the dragon.
I was a fool to call either of you traitors.
Renly swallows hard.
I wanted to, for a while. I thought about it every day. They loved me, and I was alone. Neither of you saw me. I thought that their support would be enough, that I would be the man they rallied behind.
There's a long silence, then Robert steps forward, gripping them both by the shoulder.
Then see each other now. We've all been damned fools, but we're here. We're still alive, and there's a dragon in our lands that needs slaying.
Ned joins them. The 4 stand united, for the first time in years. The Baratheon's stark host marches fast, sweeping up smaller enemies in its wake. By the time they reach Riverrun, their numbers swell to over 35,000, reinforced by river lords loyal to Edmure. The Golden Company surrounds Riverrun and holds the surrounding fields. Their standards fly high. Aegon himself rides at the center. The Baratheons meet beneath a field of gold stag banners. Stannis commands the rear, holding the flank and managing supplies and reinforcement flow. He relinquishes command to Robert, opting instead to watch their backs. Robert commands the center, the hammer, the war cry, the crown. Renly, the youngest, leads the vanguard and is given the task of breaking the front lines for the rest of the army. Ned Stark oversees the right, calm, methodical, anchoring the line by the river and holding it. The clash is savage. Renly smashes into the enemy front, pushing toward the Targaryen standard. His men batter their lines with charge after charge. While they do not break, their lines crack. It is enough for the second wave as Robert comes crashing through. In the flanks, Ned and Loras Tyrell both hold the enemy armies at bay, keeping their armies from reforming and sandwiching the center. Robert charges through with his knights, hammer swinging like a storm. Steel screams, horses fall, men drown in the river. But Robert is only concerned about one thing: those dragon banners. As the fighting grows more intense there, Stannis is careful to send out his troops, deploying small batches of reinforcements to stabilize their lines and plugging up any gaps left behind. Even the vaunted Goldman struggles to beat back the assault. Arrows rain overhead upon their forces, but Robert barely feels it. His hammer sweeps back and forth, throwing men aside as he is aided by Renly, who just barely prevents their men from collapsing entirely. Renly drives deep into the enemy host until he meets Jon Connington. They duel amid the chaos. Renly fights well, but Jon cuts across his face, blinding him in one eye. But as Renly falls, Robert's horse leaps over him, hammer in hand, and bellowing Jon Connington's name. Jon readies himself, defending against each attack. Yet while Robert might not have the strength of his old self, seeing his fallen brother fills him with rage, and his hammer falls again and again until Jon's armor cracks and his sword breaks. With one final swing, he smashes through Jon's chest and rushes towards Aegon. They clash in the shadow of the Tully Gates, one crowned in yellow and gold, the other in black and silver. It is a short fight. Aegon is brave, but green. Robert's warhammer crashes down, shattering the Targaryen's helmet and his claim. The dragon's return ends in a spray of blood. As Riverrun is reclaimed, the Golden Company scatters or surrenders. Peace, for now, returns. Yet when they return to King's Landing, the three brothers work to make sure the peace will last. They begin to rule once again, but not separately. The three unite their forces and their talents as they begin working to restore the Seven Kingdoms to greatness. Robert lets Stannis continue serving his hand, but now pays close attention to him and offers his help in planning policies. Renly, meanwhile, meets with lords and small folk to help them understand what they wish and gauge their support. The three combine their talents, and together, they stand taller than ever before. Rather than being an end to the Seven Kingdoms and Baratheon rule, it is instead a rebirth. That's our theory. Westeros is a land filled with exciting stories and possibilities, and we love exploring them. If you want to accompany us on this journey across the Seven Kingdoms and beyond, then please like, share, and subscribe to our channel.